The first warning came from the outer sensor stations. Deep in the void beyond the Velo system, something massive had appeared on the scanners. Ambassador Tolan felt his chest tighten as he watched the readings pour in from the orbital monitoring platform. The ships were huge, dark, and moving with purpose toward his homeworld. How many? He asked the technician, though he already dreaded the answer. 47 vessels, sir. All of them larger than our biggest transport ships. The young Althari's voice shook. They're not responding to our greeting signals. Tolan closed his eyes for a moment. The Althari had lived in peace for over 3 centuries. Their world of Velos was beautiful, with crystal cities that rose from purple forests and silver seas. They had no weapons beyond basic defense systems. They had never needed them. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead enemy vessel. The creature that appeared made Tolan's blood freeze. It was massive, covered in dark chitin armor, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the darkness. Behind it, dozens of similar beings worked at control stations. I am Warlord Graketh. Of the Crimson Horde, the creature spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Your world will surrender in 3 rotations, or we will take it by force. Your people will serve the Horde, and your resources will feed our expansion. The transmission ended. Tolan stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The Althari Council would meet within the hour, but he already knew what they would decide. Velos had no military, no weapons capable of stopping such a force. They were scholars, artists, and peaceful farmers. They had never learned to fight. The emergency session lasted until dawn. Elder Myra, the oldest member of the council, spoke for them all when she said, "We cannot fight them. But we cannot surrender our people to slavery either." Then what do? We do? Asked Counselor Dren, his feathers rustling with anxiety. Tolan had been thinking about this since the transmission ended. We call for help. From whom? Myra asked. The Corvani Republic is too far away. The Ethereal Collective never interferes in other worlds' affairs. The traitor clans have no military. We broadcast everywhere, Tolan said. To every corner of the galaxy. Someone might hear us. Someone might help. It was a desperate plan, but it was all they had. The Althari had powerful communication arrays originally built for deep space research. If they boosted the signal and sent it in all directions, it might reach dozens of worlds. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Engineers worked to modify the transmission equipment while linguists prepared the message in 17 different languages. Tolan stood in the communication center, watching as technicians made final adjustments to the massive dish array outside. Ready when you are, Ambassador, said the lead engineer. Tolan took a deep breath and activated the recording system. This message would travel faster than light to every corner of the galaxy. It might be the last hope for his people. This is Ambassador Tolan of the Althari people on the world of Velos. We are a peaceful civilization facing extinction. A force calling itself the Crimson Horde has arrived in our system with 47 warships. They demand our surrender and the enslavement of our people. We have no military, no weapons, no way to defend ourselves. He paused, looking out the window at the crystal spires of his city. Children played in the gardens below, unaware that their world might end in 2 days. We are not warriors. We are teachers, artists, and farmers. We have spent centuries building a society of peace and learning. We have advanced technology and energy generation, medicine, and space travel. We offer to share all of our knowledge with any who might help us survive this crisis. The words felt strange in his mouth. The Althari had never asked for help before. They had always been self-sufficient, proud of their peaceful ways. But pride meant nothing if they were all dead or enslaved. If you receive this message, please know that we are not asking you to die for us. We understand that no one owes us protection. But if there is any way you can help, any assistance you can provide, we would be forever grateful. Our coordinates are included in this transmission. Time is running out. The transmission ended. Within minutes, the boosted signal was racing across the galaxy at speeds that defied comprehension. It would reach the nearest star systems within Hours, the far edge of the galaxy within days, Tolan returned to his office in the council building, where reports were already coming in from around the world. The Crimson Horde had begun sending smaller ships to scan the surface. They were mapping the cities, counting the population, cataloging the resources they would soon claim. The first responses to their plea came within 6 hours. The Corvani Republic expressed sympathy but confirmed they were too far away to help. The Merchant Guild of Raxes offered to negotiate with the Horde for better terms of surrender. 3 other species sent variations of the same message. They were sorry. But they could not intervene. As the second day dawned, hope began to fade. 12 more responses had arrived, all negative. Some species feared the Horde themselves. Others simply lacked the military power to challenge such a force. A few offered to accept Aldari refugees if any managed to escape. The Crimson Horde began moving closer to Velos. Their massive ships took position around the planet, dark shapes that blocked out the stars. Graykith sent another message, this time showing footage of worlds his forces had conquered. Cities burned, populations fled in terror, and the Horde's banner flew over the ruins. "One day remains," he announced. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." That evening, Tolan was reviewing evacuation plans when his assistant burst into the office. "Ambassador, we've received a new response." The message was unlike the others. It came from a small world in an unremarkable system, a place called Earth. The signal was strong, clear, and carried an odd accent that the translation software struggled with. "This is Dr. Emily Watson of the Arecibo 2 Deep Space Communications. Array, we have received your distress call and are forwarding it to the appropriate authorities. Please maintain your current communication frequency. Help may be coming." It was not much, but it was different from the others. There was no apology, no explanation of why they could not help. Just a simple statement that help might come. Tolan stared at the message for a long time. He had never heard of Earth or these humans. But something in the tone of the message gave him hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone out there was willing to fight for strangers. Outside his window, the Crimson Horde ships darkened the sky. But for the first time in days, Tolan allowed himself to believe that dawn might still come to Velos. The hyperspace jump lasted 3 weeks, but Alex Thompson had spent every day of it studying the alien signal. The message from Velos played on repeat in his quarters while he memorized every detail about the Aldari people and their attackers. The United Earth Defense Council had given him clear orders: assess the situation, make contact, and determine if humanity could help. The U's Resolute dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velos system, and Thompson's first view of the situation made his jaw clench. Massive enemy warships hung around the planet like vultures, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The world below was covered in a shimmering energy shield that flickered with each bombardment. "Get me a tactical reading," Thompson ordered. From his command chair, Lieutenant Commander Kim worked quickly at the sensor station, his fingers dancing across the controls. 47 enemy vessels, sir. Each one is roughly 3 times the size of our ship. They're maintaining a loose blockade formation around the planet. Kim paused, studying the readings. "Sir, they're not using very sophisticated tactics. It's like they're just waiting." Dr. Santos looked up from her xenobiology station. "The shield around the planet is failing. I'm reading massive energy. Drain from the surface. They can't maintain it much longer." Thompson nodded grimly. The Aldari were dying slowly, their defenses crumbling under sustained attack. But something bothered him about the enemy formation. Any competent military force would have overwhelmed the planet within hours. These ships were just sitting there, bombarding randomly. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. "Use the frequency." From their distress call, the response came immediately. The being that appeared on screen was tall and slender, with feathered skin and large, intelligent eyes. When it spoke, the translation software rendered its words in careful, precise English. "This is Ambassador Tolan of the Aldari Council. Are you the ones called humans? I am Captain Thompson of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your message and came to help." Tolan's eyes widened. You came. You actually came. His voice carried a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. But you're only one ship. The Horde has 47 vessels. We're here to assess the situation, Thompson replied. Tell me about your attackers. For the next hour, Tolan shared everything they knew about the Crimson Horde. They were an expansionist empire that had conquered dozens of worlds over the past 50 years. They enslaved populations, stripped planets of resources, and moved on to the next target. Their leader, Warlord Graketh, was known for his cruelty and his hatred of peaceful civilizations. They gave us 3 days to surrender, Tolan explained. Tomorrow is the deadline. Thompson studied the tactical display while they talked. The Horde ships were powerful but slow. Their weapons were brute force energy cannons, effective but not particularly sophisticated. More importantly, they seemed to rely on intimidation rather than strategy. Ambassador, I need to ask you about your world. What's the gravity like? The atmosphere? Tolan looked confused by the question. Gravity is ... normal. The atmosphere is safe for us to breathe. Why do you ask? Dr. Santos leaned forward. Captain, I'm reading gravity at about 0.6 Earth standard. The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, but the pressure is only about half what we're used to. Thompson nodded. That explained a lot. He activated the CUM system again. Ambassador, we need to meet in person. Can you arrange a secure location? Of course. We have a landing bay in the capital city. But Captain, the Horde will attack any ship that approaches the planet. Let them try, Thompson replied. The Resolute descended through the atmosphere like a missile, its hull glowing from the heat of re-entry. 2 Horde fighters moved to intercept, but they were slow and clumsy compared to the human ship. Thompson dodged their energy blasts easily and landed in the Aldery spaceport without firing a shot. The moment he stepped out of the ship, Thompson understood why the Aldery were losing. The artificial gravity in the landing bay was so weak he felt like he could jump to the ceiling. The air was thin, making him feel slightly dizzy until his body adjusted. These people had evolved on a world that would be considered a paradise. By human standards, Ambassador Tolan met them at the airlock, accompanied by 2 guards and a medical team. The Aldery were even more fragile than they appeared on screen. Their bones were hollow, their skin thin as paper, and they moved with the careful grace of beings who could be injured by a strong breeze. Welcome to Velos, Tolan said, his voice filled with awe. Forgive me, but you're much larger than I expected. Thompson was only average height for a human, but he towered over the Aldery. Dr. Santos was equally tall, and both humans moved with a confidence that clearly impressed their hosts. Your world is beautiful, Dr. Santos said, looking out at the crystal spires of the city. But I need to ask some questions about your biology, for medical purposes. The next few hours were a revelation for both species. Dr. Santos discovered that the Aldery were incredibly vulnerable by human standards. Their bones would break from impacts that humans would barely notice. Their skin could be torn by sharp words, literally. They couldn't survive in temperatures below freezing or above 30 degrees Celsius. In return, the Aldery were amazed by human durability. When Thompson casually lifted a piece of equipment that took 3 of them to move, they stared in disbelief. When Dr. Santos mentioned that Earth's gravity was twice as strong as theirs, they couldn't understand how humans could even walk upright. Your world must be a nightmare, Tolan said quietly. How do you survive in such conditions? We call it home, Thompson replied. Earth made us tough. We had to be, or we wouldn't have survived. The medical examination revealed even more differences. Human blood pressure would kill an Aldery instantly. The human immune system was so aggressive it could fight off diseases that would destroy other species. Even human reflexes were faster, adapted to deal with predators and hazards that would terrify most galactic civilizations. I'm beginning to understand, Tolan said as they reviewed the data. You're not just another species. You're something entirely different. Dr. Santos looked up from her scanner. Captain, I need to show you something. She displayed a comparison chart on her tablet. The Aldery are built for peace. Low gravity, stable climate, no natural predators. They've never had to fight for survival. And we're built for war, Thompson finished. Earth made us into weapons without us realizing it. The revelation changed everything. The Aldari had called for help from the galaxy, but they had unknowingly contacted the one species that could actually provide it. Humans weren't just another civilized race. They were something new, something dangerous, something that could fight the Crimson Horde on equal terms. As night fell on Velos, Thompson stood on the balcony of the council building, looking up at the enemy ships. Tomorrow they would demand surrender. But tonight he was sending a message to Earth that would change the galaxy forever. This is Captain Thompson to Earth Command. The situation is worse than we thought, but we can handle it. Send the fleet. All of it. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do. Above him, the stars were blocked by the dark shapes of the Horde fleet, but Thompson smiled anyway. They had no idea what was coming for them. The response from Earth arrived faster than anyone expected. Within hours of Thompson's message, hyperspace tiers began opening throughout the Sol system as ships that had been scattered across human space converged on their homeworld. Admiral Rivers stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching as the most powerful fleet in human history assembled before him. The used Titan emerged from hyperspace first, its massive hull scarred from the Mars colonial wars. Behind it came the Nemesis, fresh from the Outer Rim campaigns, and the Predator, which had never lost a battle in 15 years of service. Smaller vessels filled the spaces between the giants, destroyers, cruisers, and transport ships loaded with Marines. Final count, Admiral, reported Commander Hayes from the tactical station. 15 capital ships, 43 support vessels, and enough ground forces to conquer a continent. Rivers nodded grimly. It was the largest military operation Earth had ever mounted, and they were doing it for aliens they had never met. But Thompson's report had been clear. The Aldari were facing extinction, and they had technology that could benefit humanity for generations. More importantly, they had asked for help. That meant something to Rivers, who had spent his career fighting humanity's enemies. For once, they weren't the aggressors. They were the cavalry. Launch coordinates for the Velos system, he ordered. All ships prepare for a hyperspace jump. The journey to Velos took 18 hours at maximum speed. During the trip, Rivers met with his senior officers to review the battle plan. The Crimson Horde had superior numbers, but their ships were slow and their tactics were primitive. More importantly, they had never faced humans in battle. Colonel Mitchell commanded the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, 3,000 of the toughest soldiers humanity had ever produced. They had fought in the crushing gravity of Jupiter's moons, the toxic atmosphere of Venus, and the frozen wastes of Pluto. To them, alien warfare was just another day at the office. The enemy ground forces are roughly humanoid but larger, Mitchell briefed her officers. They rely on intimidation and brute force. Standard human tactics should be more than adequate. Dr. Santos had transmitted detailed information about both species, and the human military had adapted quickly. Aldari shield technology was being integrated into human ships even as they traveled. In return, human weapons were being modified. To work with alien power systems, the cultural exchange was equally important. Ambassador Tolan had shared Aldari history, art, and philosophy with the human diplomats. They were a gentle people who had never known war, never experienced the kind of violence that shaped human civilization. They deserved protection. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velos system, the effect was immediate. The Crimson Horde ships, which had been lazily orbiting the planet, suddenly scrambled into defensive positions. Their communications traffic spiked as commanders tried to understand what they were facing. "This is Admiral Rivers of the United Earth Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. This world is under human protection." The response came from Warlord Graykith himself. The massive insectoid appeared on screen, his forearms gesturing angrily as he spoke. "You dare challenge the Crimson Horde? We have conquered 47 worlds. We will add yours to the list." "You're welcome to try," Rivers replied calmly. "But you should know that humans don't surrender. The threat didn't impress Grakoth. His species had faced dozens of alien races, and they had all fallen eventually. These humans looked soft, pink, and weak. Their ships were smaller than his dreadnoughts, their weapons less impressive than horde cannons. "You have 1 hour to withdraw," Grakoth declared. "Then we will destroy you and enslave your world as well." The transmission ended. Rivers turned to his tactical officer. "Analysis?" "Their ships are big but slow, sir. Heavy armor, powerful weapons, but they maneuver like asteroids. Our ships are faster, more agile, and our weapons are more accurate. Ground forces?" Colonel Mitchell stepped forward. "Intelligence suggests?" "They're primarily shock troops, sir. Big, scary, but not particularly skilled. They've never faced organized resistance." Rivers nodded. The Crimson Horde had grown complacent, conquering peaceful worlds that couldn't fight back. They were about to learn the difference between conquest and warfare. On the surface of Velos, the Aldari watched in amazement as human ships took position around their world. Thompson had remained on the planet to coordinate with the local government, and his presence had given them hope during the darkest hours. "How many ships?" Tolan asked, staring at the tactical display. 58 vessels, Thompson replied. "Plus 3,000 Marines and enough firepower to level a mountain." The number meant nothing to Tolan, who had never seen a real battle. But the confidence in Thompson's voice was infectious. For the first time since the Horde arrived, the Aldari began to believe they might survive. Human engineers worked quickly to integrate their technology with Aldari systems. The planet's shield generators were reinforced with human power cores, creating a defensive barrier stronger than anything the Horde had encountered. Weapon platforms were installed on the surface, manned by human crews who treated the alien equipment like familiar tools. Dr. Santos established a field hospital in the capital city, where she trained Aldari medical personnel to treat human injuries. The biological differences were extreme, but human medicine was adaptable. More importantly, humans were remarkably resistant to the diseases and toxins that would kill other species. The hour deadline passed without incident. Both fleets remained in position, weapons powered but not yet firing. The Crimson Horde was waiting for the humans to make the first move, expecting them to attack recklessly. The humans were waiting for the Horde to commit to a formation, planning to use their superior mobility to maximum advantage. Finally, Grakoth lost patience. His dreadnoughts began moving toward the planet, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Behind them came swarms of smaller vessels, fighters and bombers that had overwhelmed countless worlds. "All ships, battle stations," Rivers ordered. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for everyone who can't fight for themselves." The human fleet moved to intercept, their ships dancing between the enemy vessels with an agility that shocked the Horde commanders. This wasn't the kind of warfare they were used to. Their opponents moved like hunters, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before return fire could find them. The battle was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when peaceful people called for help from a world that had never known peace. The Crimson Horde had conquered 47 worlds, but they had never faced humans in battle. That was about to change. The first shot came from the Horde flagship, a massive energy beam that would have vaporized most ships in the galaxy. The used Titan took the hit on its forward shields and kept coming, its return fire punching through the enemy vessel's armor like paper. The battle for Velos had begun. Grakoth watched in disbelief as his most powerful weapon barely scratched the human ship. The Titan's hull was designed to withstand the crushing pressure of gas giant atmospheres and the radiation storms of binary star systems. Horde weapons, while impressive, were crude compared to the forces that had shaped human engineering. "All ships, attack pattern Omega," Rivers ordered. "Show them what Earth's children can do." The human fleet scattered like a school of fish, each ship moving independently but in perfect coordination. The Horde commanders tried to track them, but their massive vessels couldn't turn fast enough to follow the human ship's movements. It was like trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. The Nemesis dove beneath the enemy formation, its plasma cannons ripping through the underbelly of a Horde cruiser. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, debris raining down on the planet. Below, the Predator attacked from above, its railguns punching holes through 3 enemy vessels in a single pass, but the real shock came when the smaller human ships began their assault. Destroyers and cruisers that the Horde had dismissed as insignificant suddenly revealed weapons that could penetrate their heaviest armor. Human military doctrine was based on mobility and firepower, not size and intimidation. How are their weapons so effective? Graketh demanded from his command deck. Our armor should stop anything they can throw at us. His tactical officer studied the readings with growing alarm. Sir, their weapons are designed for penetration, not area effect. They're not trying to overwhelm our defenses. They're punching through them. The difference was fundamental. The Horde used massive energy weapons that relied on raw power to overcome enemy defenses. Human weapons were precision instruments designed to find weak points and exploit them. Every shot was calculated, every hit devastating. On the surface of Velos, Colonel Mitchell watched the orbital battle through her helmet display while preparing her own assault. The Horde had landed troops on the planet's surface, expecting to overwhelm the defenders while their fleet dealt with the human ships. They were about to learn that this was a mistake. 3rd Battalion, prepare for drop, she ordered. Remember, these people have never seen real combat. Show them what Earth's Marines can do. The drop pods launched from the human ships like meteorites, streaking through the atmosphere at speeds that would have been fatal to most species. Each pod contained a squad of Marines in powered armor, their suits designed to operate in environments that would kill unprotected humans. The Horde ground forces were massive, easily 3 times the size of a human, with chitinous armor and weapons that crackled with energy. They had conquered dozens of worlds with these troops, overwhelming peaceful populations through sheer intimidation. But they had never faced organized resistance. The first pod landed in the middle of a Horde formation, and the Marine who emerged moved with a speed that shocked the aliens. Lieutenant Davis rolled out of his pod, his rifle already firing, and 3 Horde soldiers fell before they could react. His armor, designed for the volcanic plains of Io, shrugged off their return. Fire like raindrops. Contact, Davis reported over the comm system. Enemy troops are big and scary, but they're slow. Standard tactics are effective. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human Marines engaged the Horde forces. The aliens had size and strength, but humans had speed, training, and weapons designed for war. More importantly, they had experience fighting in conditions that would terrify most galactic civilizations. Sergeant Williams found herself surrounded by 6 Horde soldiers, their weapons trained on her position. On any other world, against any other species, this would have been certain death. But Williams had survived the Titan Rebellion, where humans fought humans in the crushing gravity of Jupiter's largest moon. She activated her suit's jump jets, launching herself over the enemy formation while her rifle spat death from above. The Horde soldiers tried to track her movement, but their reflexes were too slow. By the time they realized where she was, 3 of them were dead and the others were scrambling for cover. These aren't warriors, Williams reported. They're bullies, big difference. The orbital battle was reaching its climax. The Horde fleet, designed for overwhelming static defenses, couldn't adapt to the human tactics. Their ships were taking massive damage while barely scratching the human vessels. Graketh's flagship, the massive dreadnought that had destroyed 3 worlds, was listing badly from multiple hits. Sir, we're losing, his tactical officer reported. Their ships are too fast, their weapons too accurate, we need to withdraw. Graketh's mandibles clicked with rage. The Crimson Horde had never retreated from battle. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, the ultimate expression of military might. But these humans fought like demons, ignoring damage that would cripple other species and returning fire that seemed to find every weak spot in Horde armor. All ships, ramming speed, he ordered. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we'll crush them with our hulls. It was a desperate tactic, but it had worked before. The massive Horde ships were built like fortresses, designed to absorb enormous punishment. A ramming attack would destroy both vessels. but it would take the humans down with them. The human response was immediate and shocking. Instead of trying to evade the ramming attack, Rivers ordered his ships to meet it head-on. The Titan accelerated directly toward the Horde flagship, its hull reinforced with alloys designed to withstand the pressure at the bottom of Earth's deepest oceans. The collision was spectacular. The two ships smashed together with the force of a small meteor strike, their hulls crumpling and tearing. But when the debris cleared, the Titan was still intact. Its bow section crushed, but its vital systems still operational. The Horde flagship was breaking apart, its crew abandoning ship. "Impossible," Graketh whispered as he watched his vessel die around him. "How do they survive impacts that would destroy our ships?" The answer was simple. Human ships were built to operate in the most hostile environment in the galaxy. Space around Earth, they had to withstand solar radiation, cosmic rays, and the gravitational stress of multiple planetary bodies. The Horde's ramming attack was just another day at the office for human engineering. Across the battlefield, the story was the same. Horde ships that attempted ramming attacks found themselves destroyed against human hulls that refused to break. The few vessels that survived the impacts were crippled, their crews stunned by the failure of their ultimate weapon. "This is Admiral Rivers to all Horde vessels," came the broadcast. "Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you all." For the first time in the history of the Crimson Horde, Graketh considered surrender. His fleet was broken, his troops were retreating, and these humans showed no sign of slowing down. But surrender meant the end of everything he had built, the collapse of an empire that had ruled through fear for 50 years. "Never," he snarled into the comm system. "The Horde does not surrender." The final phase of the battle began as the surviving Horde ships made their last desperate attack. But it was too late. The humans had already won, and now they were just finishing the job. The galaxy was about to learn that there were some species you simply didn't threaten, and the Aldari, watching from their crystal cities, were about to discover that their call for help had summoned something unprecedented, a species that actually meant it when they said they would protect the innocent. The news of the Horde's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Trade ships carried word to distant systems, their crews barely able to believe what they had witnessed. The Crimson Horde, the unstoppable force that had conquered 47 worlds, had been shattered by a single human fleet. Graketh was dead, his flagship destroyed, and the surviving Horde vessels were fleeing back to their core territories. Ambassador Tolan stood in the ruins of the orbital defense station, watching human engineers work to rebuild what the Horde had destroyed. The efficiency was remarkable. Where Aldari workers would have taken weeks to plan the reconstruction, humans simply started building, their tools and methods adapted to any environment. "Your people are incredible," he told Dr. Santos, who was supervising the installation of a new medical facility. "We've never seen anything like them." Dr. Santos smiled, her face streaked with sweat and dirt from the construction work. "We're survivors, Ambassador. Earth made us that way. We adapt, we overcome, and we help those who need it." The formal ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Aldari Council, where leaders from both species gathered to sign the historic Defense Pact. Captain Thompson, now promoted to Admiral, stood beside Tolan as they exchanged documents that would bind their civilizations together. "The Aldari people offer their most advanced technologies," Tolan announced. "Energy shields, quantum communication, medical techniques that can extend life for centuries. In return, we ask only for protection from those who would do us harm." Thompson nodded solemnly. "The United Earth Defense Force accepts this responsibility. From this day forward, an attack on Velos is an attack on Earth itself." But the ceremony was interrupted by an urgent message from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. A new signal had been detected, this one from the Corvani Republic. Their message was brief and desperate. "The Horde survivors are attacking our colonies. Please help us." Admiral Rivers, commanding the human fleet from the bridge of the rebuilt Titan, didn't hesitate. "Set course for the Corvani system, maximum speed." The pattern repeated itself across the galaxy. Each time the Horde survivors tried to rebuild their empire, they found human ships waiting for them. Each time a peaceful world called for help, the answer was the same. Help is coming. The humans established forward bases on 6 different worlds, each one a fortress that protected entire sectors of space. The Aldari provided the technology, the humans provided the muscle, and together they created a defensive network that no aggressor could penetrate. Other species took notice. The Ethereal Collective, which had remained isolated for centuries, sent ambassadors to Earth. The merchant guilds established trade routes that brought exotic goods to human space. Even the warlike Corvan Republic sought defensive treaties. With the newcomers, Dr. Santos found herself at the center of a new field of study, comparative biology between Earth species and the rest of the galaxy. Her research revealed that humans weren't just tough by galactic standards, they were completely unprecedented. No other species had evolved under such harsh conditions, and no other species had developed such extreme adaptability. We call them Deathworlders, she wrote in her published paper. A species evolved on a planet so hostile that warfare is considered a recreational activity compared to their natural environment. The term caught on quickly. Within months, Deathworlder was being used throughout the galaxy to describe humans. Some species used it with fear, others with respect, but all of them understood what it meant. Humans were different. The changes went beyond military protection. Human medical techniques, designed for a species that regularly survived injuries. That would kill most aliens, revolutionized galactic healthcare. Human engineering, built to withstand extreme conditions, made space travel safer for everyone. Human agricultural methods, developed on a world with hostile weather and aggressive pests, ended food shortages on dozens of worlds, but perhaps the most important change was philosophical. For the first time in galactic history, there was a species that used its strength to protect rather than conquer. The human fleet didn't demand tribute or establish colonies. They simply showed up when called, fought when necessary, and left when the job was done. Colonel Mitchell, now General Mitchell, established the Galactic Defense Academy on a moon-orbiting Velos. Here, volunteers from peaceful species learned basic combat techniques from human instructors. The goal wasn't to turn scholars into warriors, but to give them the tools to defend themselves until help could arrive. The best defense is not needing to fight at all, she told her first class of Aldari cadets. But if someone forces you to fight, make sure you win. The Academy's motto, inscribed in 17 languages above the main entrance, reflected humanity's new role in the galaxy. We stand guard so others may live in peace. 5 years after the Battle of Velos, Admiral Thompson received a report that made him smile. The Crimson Horde's former territories had been liberated, their enslaved populations freed, and their war machines dismantled. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries, but the most satisfying report came from the deep space monitoring stations. Another distress call had been detected, this one from a species called the Zentari, who were facing attack from raiders. The response was immediate. 3 human ships were already en route, their crews eager to help. The cycle continued. Somewhere in the galaxy, peaceful people faced threats they couldn't handle alone. And somewhere else, human ships received the call and changed course toward danger. It was what they did now, what they were good at, what Earth had made them. For Ambassador Tolan, now approaching his 100th birthday thanks to human medical advances, often stood in his garden watching the stars. The human ships were invisible from the surface, but he knew they were there, silent guardians protecting his world and countless others. His grandson, one of the first Aldari to graduate from the Defense Academy, found him there one evening. "Grandfather, do you ever regret sending that message to Earth?" Tolan smiled, his aged features reflecting the wisdom of someone who had witnessed history change. "Child, that message didn't just save our world. It introduced the galaxy to something we had never seen before, a species that measures its success. Not by what it conquers, but by what it protects." In the depths of space, the UES Guardian received another distress call. The coordinates were for a system 40 light-years away, where a species called the Milani were under attack by slavers. Captain Rodriguez checked her ship's status, confirmed her crew was ready, and gave the order that had become humanity's signature response to those in need. Set course for the Milani system, maximum speed, another world needs our help. The stars stretched into lines as the Guardian jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward another battle, another rescue, another chance to prove that strength could be used for good. Behind them, Earth's children spread across the galaxy like seeds, taking root wherever peace needed protection. The Deathworlders were marching, not as conquerors but as guardians. And the galaxy, for the first time in its long history, slept, peacefully knowing that someone was watching over them in the dark.